moment.
Welcome back to the program. Well, as if it wasn't already difficult enough for the government to try to minimise the swing against it in the Canning by-election next Saturday, it was revealed during the week that the Liberal Democrats will be running a candidate and will be preferencing the Labor Party rather than the Liberal Party. We're joined by Liberal Democrat Senator David Leyonhjelm. Thanks for your company.
Thank you.
Where does the decision come from? What are your reasons behind it? And I guess to go with that from a sort of professional political perspective, for it to have an impact, will you be manning all the booths with people handing out how-to-vote cards?
Where does it come from? We're being sued by the Liberal Party over our name. Well, technically they're suing the Australian Electoral Commission for approving a change in our abbreviation, but the intention is to take our name off us. The Liberal Party, well, some parts of the Liberal Party at least, the influential bits, think they own the word Liberal. They think my election was a mistake. All of my votes were attributable to the Liberal Party and people were voting for me thinking they were voting for the Liberal Party. That's their argument. We disagree with that. We think that's not even vaguely correct, but they believe it. And so they're suing us now. I suppose ideologically, philosophically, we would tend to be closer to the Liberal Party than we are to the Labor Party. But friends do not sue friends. That's the bottom line. There have been a number of policy issues that we haven't been happy with as well with this government, which has sort of taken the gloss off it a bit, if I can put it that way. But suing us, and it's costing us a lot of money now. We've had to brief senior counsel. You know, we just don't think that that's a formula for giving preferences.
So in Canning, how do you expect to go with your candidate in Canning? And are you going to be manning all the booths and handing out how-to-vote cards, which would, if you like, maximise the damage against the government of the decision that you've taken?
We expect to man most booths. I don't know whether it'll be everyone, but yes, a lot.
Have Labor offered to help?
I'm not discussing how we're going to do it. We're doing some where there will be people helping us. I'm not discussing any details on that. But how do we expect to go? I don't know. In the last Senate rerun in Western Australia, I think vote was around the 3% mark. In the election in 2013, we were fairly high on the ballot paper, although the ballot paper for Senate runs across rather than up and down. We were around about the 3% mark. Now, so the question is, how much impact have I had since I went into the Senate? I've done quite a lot of interviews in Western Australia. I've got a bit of profile over there. There's a lot of people in Western Australia who think taxes should be lower and there should be less regulation, so they're sort of on my page. How much impact has that had and what will that translate into votes? I mean, I'll take the easy way out and say somewhere between 3 and 10%.
But just to clarify that answer, you left open, I think, the possibility that you might get assistance from the Labor Party. Is that the situation?
Well, no, I don't think we'll be getting assistance from the Labor Party, but the Labor Party knows people who'd like to help us, if I can put it that way. So I don't think it's a matter of the Labor Party itself helping us, but they're quite obviously. If we'd been preferencing the Liberal Party would have found people to help us.
So Labor will be finding people to help you?
I don't know.
That's what's happening in Canning, isn't it?
Labor sympathisers will be. I don't know that it's the Labor Party itself.
OK, I gather from what you just said that you're saying the Liberal Party is not your friend. Is that where we are?
Friends do not sue friends.
So the Liberal Party is not your friend, obviously, by definition?
Not at the moment, no.
But the reality is, Senator, is that most of your votes in the Senate have gone with the government.
Correct.
Is that likely to change?
Well, we're a party of principle, so I'm not going to abandon our libertarian principles and policies. So when the government is introducing legislation that will reduce taxation or increase liberty, obviously I'll support that. And conversely, I'll oppose amendments coming from Labor which do the opposite. But so I'm not going to abandon all that. So my expectation is that I won't vote with the government as much as I have done. I think I haven't been keeping track, but I've read somewhere that my record is about 70% with the government. I would expect that to fall a bit because there are there are occasionally times when it doesn't make much difference to our principles, you know, which way I go.
So there's a growing divide between you and the government in an organisational sense, but also in a parliamentary sense. I guess that's right. But how will, if that's the case, how will this then affect the government's policy program in the Senate?
I don't think it'll make a huge difference. The only time it matters is when they need the crossbench. they are increasingly negotiating with Labor and even once with the Greens to get their numbers. When they have to negotiate with the crossbench, that's when my vote becomes relevant. Now, up to date, I have tended to give the government the benefit of the doubt if it hasn't been offensive to my party's principles and policies. Policies and principles come first, of course, but after that, say, well, OK, they're the government of the day. I have a good personal relationship with the government in the Senate. There's nothing personal about this. I quite like some of the government frontbenchers. So I've given them the benefit of the doubt. But it hasn't helped. They keep suing us. I mean, they keep the legal action going. What am I supposed to do? How are they going to get the message? You do not sue your friends.
Well, it's not just the suing side of it. There's also both major parties and indeed the Greens that are looking at electoral reform for the Senate, which would have an impact on parties like yours. Is that something that's in your mind as well?
That's a factor, yes. And in fairness, again here, the Liberals have done themselves no favours. They were enthusiastic supporters of getting rid of group voting tickets, which would wipe out the minor parties, including mine. What it would have done is entrenched Labor, Liberals or Coalition and Greens in the Senate, and essentially apart from Nick Xenophon we would have all been gone under what they're proposing. The Labor Party woke up to that and said, no, we don't want to be in a permanent embrace, if you like, with the Greens. We like the diversity of the minor parties, even though sometimes they don't go with us. And they backed out of that deal. Credit to them. The Liberals didn't.
So, but it now looks as though there won't be any reform as such.
Correct. They've run out of time, essentially.
Okay, can I just ask you about policy? To what extent are you increasingly disillusioned with the Abbott government in a policy sense? And if so, what are the fundamental areas of concern?
We started becoming a bit disillusioned with the Abbott government over the back down on 18C. That was not only a breakdown of an election promise, or back down on an election promise, it's profoundly illiberal. We've then had huge issues with the national security legislation. It was essentially unnecessary. They could deal with Muslim terrorists under all the existing laws, didn't need any more. To the extent that any more were needed, there was no justification for encroachments on the free press and free speech. So that was another issue. They've been very poor at communicating the narrative over the budget. And now to the point where we've even got the government mouthing stuff about making savings when all they're talking about is putting up taxes. So we're a low tax party. We want the government to convince the Australian community that savings are necessary to lower taxes. They're not communicating that very effectively, and so it's left us a bit disillusioned.
There's an irony here, though, isn't there? Because on the one hand, you're concerned in a policy sense, it sounds like, that the Liberal Party isn't liberal enough, yet on the other hand, you're being sued by the Liberal Party over the name of your party. Yes,
the irony is that we're the Liberal Party isn't liberal. That's the problem.
So what's the end game here? If the Liberal Party's legal action against you via the AEC succeeds, does that mean that your party's out of business?
Well, our party's out of business with its current name, yes. That would be the end result. We wouldn't be able to use Liberal in our name.
So what would you look at as an alternative? I know you don't want that to happen, but you must be planning for a plan B.
Yeah, we have a plan B, but I don't really want to talk about it on national TV, if you don't mind.
Can I ask you about the next federal election, away from Canning? What is your expectations for your party, assuming you're able to run again at the next election? Will you run candidates in each state for the Senate and also all lower house seats?
Yeah, we'll run in all the states for the Senate. Whether we run for the ACT and Northern Territory is a moot point, because it tends to be one Liberal, one Labor, no matter what you do. Although the ACT is getting interesting with a strong Greens vote there, we will be running in a number of lower house seats. It's expensive. They put the price up before the last election, so there's a cost consideration there for all minor parties. But we will be running in some lower house seats.
Well, can I ask you ask you about the kind of areas? Is it inner city, outer suburban, rural and regional?
Yeah, so that's a good question. The first choice would be marginal seats. Also, whether we've got a candidate who we're happy to endorse is also a factor. If somebody's keen and we think they'd represent the party well, we don't get too fussy about whether they want to run in a particular seat. There are some issues, local issues, where we're going to run. For example, in Latrobe, we're going to run against the sitting Liberal member there. for a particular reason relating to hunting. So we choose our targets carefully. There's also some seats where they're very, very safe Labor, and the Liberals run dead, if I can put it that way. So sometimes that's worth us having a go as well.
David Leyonhjelm, we are almost out of time. Just one final question, though. Your prediction for the seat of Canning? It'll be happening less than 7 days from now.
Yeah, the Liberals will either win it narrowly or lose it narrowly, and our preferences will be the determining factor.
OK, well, that's certainly your hope. All right. Senator David Leyonhjelm, we appreciate your time on Australian Agenda. Thanks very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Troy Bramston and Paul Kelly, as always, thank you to both of you for your company. And thanks